So we are session 27, I think. Who's counting? Anybody? So as we've gone through Lamrim Chenmo, we're in the advanced practices. We're in the great scope. We're at the the step of bringing into the door of Mahayana this opportunity to really achieve enlightenment even in this lifetime. So at this point we've been covering and entering into the 6 perfections, or often called the 6 far-reaching attitudes. The first of which we covered last Wednesday, and that was generosity, the far-reaching attitude of generosity. And so today we're entering into the next one, which is the far-reaching attitude of ethics. You may have noticed we've had ethics before. We had it at the beginning, we had it in the middle, and here we have it again. It's actually one of the 3 higher trainings. It is the ground from which all spiritual growth takes place. Without it, it's just like pouring water on a rock. Without it, we really cannot flourish in any way, shape, or form in our lives. And with the piece of it to be at the far-reaching attitude, we really want to, at this point, have it combined with bodhicitta and wisdom, the empty nature of reality, understanding our interdependent relationship, and bringing to mind that attitude that is seeking to gain enlightenment for yourself and all beings. So at this level of the path, we've already taken the steps of aspiring and possibly engaged bodhicitta at this point, and really stepping into our ethics in a way that is going to help all living beings in everything that we do. So it's really a very rich mind that we're bringing here to this point. Now remember, even if we're not at the Mahayana peace in our own life, in our own practice, ethics at the beginning is where we really till the soil. Ethics in the middle is where we make progress, and ethics at this point is where it just really flourishes. So in this case, and the far-reaching attitudes, there's 3 types of ethics that they focus on. One is the ethics of avoiding unhealthy behaviors, avoiding the stuff that gets us in trouble. We started with generosity, and there's always a method here. It's not just arbitrary. Generosity is first, ethics is second. You're going to find it's easier to be ethical the more generous you are. As you cultivate generosity, as you really water the seeds of being kind and helping others, you're letting go of attachment. The mind of generosity is one that lets go of my attachment of me first, and of having a generous and open mind, one that's beneficial. And the less attached we are, the easier it is to be ethical, isn't it? So they really work hand in hand. When you look at ethics, you're going to see that, so in this first step, there's the things we seek to avoid, the unhealthy behaviors that really get us in trouble. Now, they'll say that there's 84,000 of them, and there's a top 10 list, so it's easier to remember. And we've covered them, and so they have 3 of the body, 4 of speech, and 3 of mind. And just, I know you guys all know this, but just a quick refresher so I don't forget. The 3 of the body are stealing, killing, and sexual misconduct. Now, there alone, you can see where that can create a lot of trouble in our lives, right? Harming others, getting in conflict, killing. I mean, really at its level of harming others, getting into fights. There's not a lot of joy around that. Stealing, taking what's not given, and sexual misconduct. If we really can look at actions that we've done in our lives, you may find that these kind of create conflicts. The idea around ethics in this sense is not, thou shalt not. It's like, well, you do it, but here's what's going to happen. Yeah, you can engage in that activity, but it's probably not going to turn out well. And so the Buddha's never been, it's not a sense of, anything other than a virtuous activity creates pleasurable experiences. A non-virtuous activity creates some very unpleasant experiences. And so when we think about ethics, we're really thinking about how would I like to suffer less, and how would I like to have less suffering. And imagine, so let me just go through. So those are of the body, right? So killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, speech. Speech is lying. Harsh speech, divisive speech, gossip. And then the mind is covetousness, really coveting what others have. Ill will, wishing ill for others, hoping they get theirs, And then wrong views. So these are within our mind. The view that, on the simplest and real clear way of looking at wrong views, is to think that my actions don't have a consequence, or that my thoughts don't have a consequence. That there is, in fact, an interactive thing that's happening at all times with everything I think, say, and do. And understanding the interdependence of these things. So you could see where we can get into a lot of trouble, and this just does not create harmony in our life. Can you imagine having nothing to hide? Can you imagine having a life where whatever somebody found out about you, that's okay. It's just okay. I have nothing to hide. I am who I am. And I'm not doing anything I wouldn't be worried that you'd find out about. That's the peace that comes with ethics. It's an incredible amount of peace. I've got nothing to hide. There's nothing that you can find out about. That there's a saying that character is what you do when nobody's looking. Right? How are we doing on our tax form? How are we doing? When we really want that job and we don't quite disclose this one little thing about ourselves. We really, want this thing. And so we don't kind of tell our boss the truth about a mistake. Have something to hide. Something that we don't feel good about. So you can see where attachment kind of can really lead to some ethical problems here, right? Because I really want this job. I really want you to like me. I really would like this to happen. I want that credit card, so I may boost my income levels a little bit. Who's going to know? Who's going to know? We're doing these things that are violating our ethical behavior because we want something. And who are we selling out? Other than ourselves. So when we really think about ethics in just this sense of asking us to avoid certain behaviors and mental attitudes with our mind, it's really just saying, hey, how would you like some inner peace and happiness? How would you like to not have something to hide? How would you like to be able to meditate in a way that your mind becomes clear? How would you like to be able to look in a mirror and be okay? That type of integrity and peace. So it's not, don't do this because. It's saying, yeah, do what you want, but you'll have a little more peace of mind if you avoid certain things. Because those stick with us. We know what we did. So even if I might fudge on this or that for a short-term gain, I don't feel good about it in the end because I know I fudged on this or that. When, with our speech, harsh and divisive speech, the conflicts that we have with others, how much joy is there? How much joy is there? When I covet what others have, well, that's a state of dissatisfaction in its own, right? I'm not happy. I want what you want. I want what you have. As soon as I'm coveting, I'm now dissatisfied. It cannot come from any other state. My mind's not free and easy. It says I'm missing something. I'm lacking something. So there's just not going to be a lot of peace there. Wishing ill upon others, hoping they get theirs, that's actually wishing suffering as opposed to wishing to remove suffering. Wouldn't it be a lot nicer to have a mind that is seeking to remove suffering in self and others? Isn't that a lot more peaceful? Because the mind that creates anger, the mind that creates ill will, that mind grows those seeds. And we have it in our mind. So if we want peace in the world, are we peaceful? Are we peaceful? Every time that we take a stance around not killing, around not harming others, around not stealing, all of you are now safe around me because I'm not going to harm you. I won't steal from you. I won't do anything I feel bad about, and you're automatically safer. And then everyone around you is safer. There's nothing to worry about. Imagine if we all started doing this. How those ripples go. If you want world peace, it starts here. We do not want to be the person standing on the corner with the sign that says, world peace, as I'm hitting you in the head with it, because you're an idiot and you don't understand. Don't want to be that guy. We want to be peaceful and understanding that other people have opinions and their confusions as well, and just like we do. But we can be that example. And so it really starts here. So the idea of far-reaching attitudes of ethics is really that not only will I have the opportunity to create more peace in my own life, well-being, and the conditions of all spiritual growth, that I can do this to benefit the whole world, that I'm doing it for the whole world, that I have a mind of bodhicitta, of compassion, that is seeking to remove suffering. If I'm seeking to remove suffering, why would I steal or lie or cheat? Why would I do things that create conflicts with others? And why would I do things that don't allow me to look in a mirror and feel okay? Because I'm not even creating peace here, let alone there. And so these ideas of ethics are around, we want to stop doing some things that just don't allow us to feel good about who we are and what we're doing. That create disharmony, not just in our interactions with others, but really in our own mind. If we want a clear mind that's focused, that allows us to see the nature of reality, to engage in the world with wisdom, well, it needs to be a mind that's peaceful and not agitated. When we go to sit and meditate, we don't need it to be angst or worried or stressful. And so ethics really creates these beautiful conditions to be able to rest a little more in meditation, to be at peace and at ease. And then to really till a soil from which our merit and our potentials can grow. So it's incredibly potent. And it's something that we can engage in at any level all day long. Right? We always have the potential to avoid doing things that create disharmony in our lives and others. We don't have to be at the highest Mahayana part of the path. The second piece is the ethics of engaging in constructive and virtuous behavior. So it's not just I'm not doing this. It's saying I am going to use my time in a constructive and virtuous way. That here's a day that's never going to come again. How do I want to live it? What am I doing and why am I doing it? We had that conversation the other day. Why are you here? Why are you here? How many days go through in our life and we don't even ask ourselves, why am I here? Here's a day that will never come again in your life. You have a rare and precious human rebirth, 18 specific qualities, an incredible amount of opportunity. You can read, write, you have access to unlimited potentials. What are you doing with it? Or is it just Wednesday? Is it another day that will just come and go? Why are you here? What's the meaningful part of your life? When this body comes and goes, at the end, what's going to matter? What is going to matter? How many TV shows you watched? Probably not. How much of our day goes by where not only are we not doing constructive and virtuous things, we're just trying to distract my mind, and engage in something because I don't really want to sit here and be with me. I'd rather be doing something else, reading a paper, listening to some news, doing something else, getting out. That my mind is just taking me away from actually engaging in my own life in a day that will never come again. And that's our big problem, right? We've got a very busy mind that seeks to alleviate any sense of discomfort and is constantly distracting us and luring us into little things that can maybe make us feel good for a little bit. And those very little things that we keep getting attached to that can make us feel really good for a little bit become the source of all of our pain and suffering and duress in life, right? All the things we worry and stress over are the things that we think will make us happy. It's a really fascinating cycle we get on. And it's all done mostly unconsciously. We don't even wake up and think, why am I here? What's the meaning of my life? What's the purpose of my life? What is a purposeful life? How would I like to engage in this day? What's the kind of person I would like to be? What are ethics that are meaningful to me? What are the qualities I'd like to cultivate? Those are pretty good questions. So on a Buddhist path, there's pretty much two things you want to do. You want to cultivate merit and wisdom. Merit and wisdom. So constructive behavior, virtuous activity are the potentials that cultivate our positive potentials. Merit is about, it's not like a bank account of good deeds. It's actually watering our highest potentials that really lead us to enlightenment. The highest qualities within ourselves. What's more important than developing that? So the ethics become of cultivating our highest potentials, which also means to start working on the ones that aren't so healthy. So things like purification practice, as we do our Chenrei Sig practice, some of us will take an hour out of our day on a Saturday and spend an hour purifying negative mental and emotional afflictions and things that we've done with our body for the benefit of all beings. It's kind of nice. You call to mind things that we didn't do very well and learn how to do them better. We work on, I'm impatient. Well, why don't I work on becoming patient? Yeah. I have a busy mind. Why don't I work on having a mind that's attentive and clear and goes where I would like it? I'm impulsive. Well, why don't I work on being less impulsive? Everything about ourselves can change, but it cannot change by itself in that sense. In other words, things are changing all the time on their own. But specifically, if I want this result, I need to create the cause for that result. No cause, no result. Right? I want a college degree. I won't get it by hanging out thinking I should have a college degree. It just ain't going to work. I want to be a more patient person. It doesn't happen by wishing I was a more patient person. It doesn't work that way. Right? I actually have to cultivate patience, practice patience. I want to be more loving and kind. Well, we learn to be loving and kind. You learn to read by reading, right? You learn to be loving and kind by being loving and kind. We need to cultivate that. So the ethics of constructive and virtuous activity are doing things that are meaningful and purposeful, that cultivate your higher potentials, that are beneficial in that sense. The third one's really beneficial, the ethics of beneficial activities. But these can be very beneficial. So all the time that we take, do we take time in our day on a daily practice to just pause and remember our four thoughts? Right? Four thoughts that turn our mind to Dharma. these four thoughts that you have a rare and precious human rebirth. You're not going to have it forever. Right? The impermanent nature of all the suffering in this world, of the conditioned existence, the dukkha, of all this condition, you have a rare and precious human rebirth. You won't have it long. And at the time of death, when it all comes, what's really going to matter? What's really going to matter? What goes with you? Is it the car? Is it the new bed? Is it your relationship? Is it the North Face jacket? Or the Subaru with heated seats that one day I will own? It doesn't go with us. What goes with us is how we lived our life, our karma. That goes with us. And this becomes the real treasure. The real thing that we want to think about is what we're cultivating in our mind stream, because that goes with us. How we lived our life goes with us. And even in this lifetime, that's what really, when we think about our habits and our tendencies, whether we're impulsive, whether we're impatient, whatever we're doing, that's because we've watered those in our mind stream. And what we haven't watered was patience. What we haven't watered was compassion. What we haven't watered was meditation and concentration and attention. We haven't done that. I mean, I want to be patient. I'd love to have a clear mind. But, I really want to meditate. That's, kind of a drag. No cause, no result. Like, just automatically, I really think that I should be a very patient, kind, loving person that should see the nature of reality and have a clear mind that's attentive to what I want. And you know what? I don't even think I should worry anymore. How's that working? But all those things are attainable if you create the cause for them. You can be patient. You can have a clear mind. You can eliminate worry and stress. You can have inner peace and well-being. But we don't really spend a lot of time cultivating that. Right? We spend a lot of time wanting to feel good. Right? And so the first thought out of waking up often goes to, how can I feel good today? What's up? What can I do that will amuse me, entertain me, make me feel good? Or what can I do that will, make some money so then I can go do that? So the idea then is, if I wake up and I think about, wow, I have this day that will never come again, what's meaningful to me? If I have a job, does that job give me the ability to support what's really meaningful to me in my life? And can I make my job meaningful? And in fact, you can make everything meaningful. Everything can be a Dharma practice. Everything you do can cultivate merit and wisdom. And a job never has to be work. It never has to be work. It never has to be something you're doing so you can do something else. It can be something that is cultivating your higher potentials at every given moment. If we're aware of it. If we're aware of it. But to be aware of it, we have to pause in that morning and remember, let me cultivate good, virtuous, constructive activities. A mind that is patient and clear and compassionate, that when I'm interacting with others is calling to mind that this is another valuable human being who, just like me, is trying to find their way, and what's a healthy way for us to engage in this thing that we call life together. That's a whole nother attitude. And it's one that eliminates a lot of conflict. So it waters our positive potentials and transforms the world that we get to live in and our mind in the process. So we've got the virtues or the ethics of things we want to avoid, but there's the things that we want to do, the things we want to engage in. And this often becomes the really challenging practice, and that's why we need a Sangha. Because if you have a Sangha, if you have a group of people that are doing these things together, you might actually do them. Right? You might say, hey, Aaron, where are you going on Wednesday? Well, Wednesday I'm going to the Dharma talk. Hey, yeah, me too. Maybe I'll go to the Dharma talk. And we might, do something. But you know what happens when life gets really good and everything's fine? That's not when we dig in and look at our mind. When things are painful, when we hit a wall, when we suffer, that gets us to the Dharma Center. That gets us to our practice. That gets us to our knees. That gets us to all those prayers we've ever said in our life. Just get me out of this one, man. And I'll be good, I promise. I won't do this anymore. Right? And that might even work for a day, right? And then things get better and, you know, my mind, my habits, my tendencies, it's there again. So this other idea is that, yeah, I start becoming aware of, you know, when I do these things, it just doesn't create peace. There's no peace around self-centered attitudes and my ethical behavior that harms myself and others. It's just not the way I want to live, right? It's just not the way I want to live. One of my favorite Emerson quotes, right, is for every minute of anger, you will lose 60 seconds of happiness. What a waste of time. What a waste of time. Do we want to be angry? Do you want to be? Is that fun? You would think we really would, though, right? Because we treasure it. Don't even mess with my anger, man, you know. And don't tell me it's not valid. Don't even question that. It's my anger. I'll tell you why I'm so pissed. I'll tell you how wrong they treated me. And I'll just nurture that. And I'll share it with all my friends because I love you. So I'll call you and tell you how angry I am, right? So then you can be pissed off. I mean, you know, if that's how we want to spend our day. But if I don't want to be angry, how much time am I spending on cultivating patience, which is an antidote to anger? How much time am I spending cultivating loving kindness? How much time do I maybe set an intention to recognize every other being that I come in contact with and maybe greet them as an old friend, even though I haven't met you? What a different encounter if I just meet you as an old friend and think of you as valuable, like I would my own daughter. Yeah, that really shifts the way I listen to you all of a sudden, you know? Because our old friend can be an idiot and we still love him, right? My daughter can do things that were pretty, you know, poor choices. I still love her. Why can't we extend that to others? But we don't get that mind unless we nurture that mind. We don't get that mind unless we spend some time around cultivating our virtuous activities, our positive potentials. And it actually requires a conscious effort because left to our own devices, we only do that when we're suffering. Right? When it's all good and complacent, you know, I start planning a vacation. So this is the power that we want to really encourage in our life. I notice I stop doing these things and my life gets better. And then I become less tolerant of these behaviors because I know it sucks. I know what it's like to have peace, so I don't want to lie. I don't want to have something to hide. Once you've tasted the nectar of not needing to hide anything, it becomes intolerable to not live that way. It really becomes nice to not have anything to hide. And then if I start doing things that are really beneficial and virtuous and constructive, those seeds start really growing in our lives. But we need a little oomph. We need a little oomph. And so that's why, you know, having a daily practice, having a commitment to do something. And that's why in our traditions we really spend some time on vows and commitments because they encourage us to do a practice even when we don't want to do a practice. And we do it anyway. And what's more virtuous than doing it anyway? Right? And doing it anyway. Just doing it anyway. So, this types of constructive and virtuous ethics that we can do can also be things, around, helping others. But really, in this sense, we want to think about what are the things that would really ripen our own positive potentials. What is it that we can do? Like, there's purification practices. There's people that do lots of prostration things. There's things that, like even mantras. Mantras, the idea of a mantra is to protect my mind. When I'm doing a mantra, if I've got my mala, you don't need to do a mala. You don't need a mala to do a mantra. I'm just using a visual effect. But if I'm doing a mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, I'm calling to mind the mantra of the Buddha of compassion, wishing that all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. While my mind's here, it is not on coveting, it's not on envy, it's not on anger, it's not on resentment, it's not on those things. It's protecting my mind. It's bringing my mind to a virtuous state. And I'm watering those seeds. That's a virtuous activity. So mantras, that's why we have mantras. It protects our minds. It brings our mind to something virtuous, something that we're thinking about, that we're actively doing, that's cultivating positive potentials. And even sitting there, what I'm not allowing my mind to do, which is its normal set, is going, hey, what do I want to do? What's fun? What's entertaining? Is there more licorice in the cupboard? By the way, there's 3 tubs of licorice in my cupboard. And I'm very conscious of that. But when I'm doing the mantra, I'm not thinking about the licorice. I'm thinking about all other beings. Right? And so that state of mind, because our habits and tendencies are so entrenched, they have this big pull right back, that we really want to start watering the seeds. Because if we don't have the cause, we don't have the result. If you don't plant seeds for an orange tree, you won't get an orange tree. So it's a fascinating thing in our mind that we think that, I should have a life that's pretty carefree and easy, and I should make enough money, and people should like me, and should have an appropriate amount of vacation and have inner peace. But I'm not willing to do anything for it. Not willing to do anything for it. I'm not willing to actually train my mind to pay attention. I'm not willing to sit and meditate and actually be comfortable with myself. Heaven forbid you lock me alone in a room by myself with nothing to do. Man, that's scary. How about watering those seeds, taking 5 minutes, taking 10 minutes, starting to find out that our emotions and feelings will come and go, and finding some inner peace and good qualities in a mind that's clear. But if we don't water it, we don't get there. So in the second piece of these ethics, it's really about engaging in ethics that create virtue, positive potential growth, because this is where we can grow. If my mind's not clear, and if I don't train it, it doesn't matter how much other good work I do, because I can't bring my mind into and engage in and remember how I want to live. Because I haven't even asked myself when I live. I wake up and I'm looking for the coffee pot, what I want to do next, and I'm already on a list of things. And then now it's Wednesday, and man, it was just Monday a couple days ago. How'd that happen? And I don't even know what I did yesterday, right? Because I wasn't even there. My mind was dragging me from one thought to another, one emotion to another, one desire to another. So this is the time to really cultivate the life you would like to participate in, with attention and purpose and meaning, and water those seeds. So those types of ethics. So one is, it really lays the groundwork that to start observing and stop doing things that create problems. We stop doing these things with our body, speech, and mind. And now we start doing things that are actually beneficial. And a good starting point is a real simple one. Instead of having divisive speech, how about having speech that unifies and brings people together? Right? Instead of stealing, how about becoming generous? Right? Instead of harsh speech, how about kind speech? We just the opposite. We just flip them. And instead of coveting what others have, how about rejoicing in what they have? hey, right on. It's good stuff that you're doing here. You know, empathetic joy. So we want to start paying attention to the opposites, start cultivating those, but also engage in things that can purify our mind, really work with our limitations, because this is really the path. The path is to remove the mental obscurations that really prevent us from seeing clearly, you know? And I'll put it just a real clear way. What is it that prevents you from being the person you want to be? Yeah, right? I mean, it's fascinating, right? You could wake up one day and say, I want to be a kind, patient, loving person. Go do it. Next thing you know, you're yelling at somebody, you're pissed off, and whatever. What is it that prevents you from being the person you want to be? You're going to find it's our mind. When it's nice and calm, I can make my little list. Here's the 5 things I know will improve my life. I'm going to be like this now. I read that book. It's a great book. I'm inspired. I'm going to change my life. And then 1 week later, a month later, and the only thing preventing this is my mind. And so this is the opportunity to start working with that which is preventing you from being who you want to be. Doing the things that are healthy and meaningful in your life. Cultivating potentials and working with and purifying negativities and things that are going to lead to inner peace and well-being. And the ability to engage in life in a way that's meaningful. But if you don't ask yourself the question, it just becomes Wednesday, and then it's Thursday. And then 5 years have gone by. And then our death comes. And you go, man, I was really going to do something with my life. Well, today will never come again. How are we using today? What are we watering? What are we doing? Which brings us to our the third piece then becomes the ethics of benefiting others. And this becomes an incredible source of strength when we think about a purposeful life, a life that's going to water potentials and really bring out our best potentials, is thinking about how to help others. How do we benefit the world that we live in? And it doesn't have to be the big monumental things, you know. Another one of my favorite quotes is that Tolstoy, right? Everyone thinks about changing the world, nobody thinks about changing themselves. You know, this big mission. Mother Teresa would say, you know, you don't worry about feeding 10,000 people, you feed the one in front of you. You feed the one in front of you. You don't worry about numbers, you feed the one in front of you. And that when we really look at the source of our struggle, the source of our angst, the source of our stress, the source of our despair, the source of our loneliness, all of our mental afflictions, at the core, it's because I fundamentally think I'm more important than you. What I want becomes fundamentally more important than anything else. Self-cherishing attitude. I really want this to happen. If I didn't really want this to happen, what would I stress over? What would I stress over? If I wasn't the center of the universe, how much problems could I possibly have? But if I can be a part of the universe, wow, life becomes a lot simpler. Life becomes a lot simpler. When I start realizing that I'm just one of 7 billion other human beings. There's some quote, I love quotes, as you know. I can't cite his name, but it was great. You have to remember that with one trifling exception, the world is made up of others. And all too often, it's me and all those others are getting in my way, you know. And when I'm the most important one in the room, I'm now in conflict with 7 billion others. And that's not even counting animals and all the other beings. This is a source of distress. This is not a source of joy. And so when we think about, wow, when have you really felt good about anything that you've done in your life? And what has ever felt better than alleviating the suffering of someone you care about? What has ever felt better than showing up in a way that made a difference? What's ever felt better than that? The times in your life where you made a difference. What's felt better than that? What's lasted longer than that? And every time you recall that in your mind, it's always there. So when we think about the ethics of benefiting others, that means that really coming with a mind that in all of my actions, all of my activities, I want to be of benefit. And this doesn't, again, have to be the big, I'm going to save the world. You know, I delivered auto parts when I got this job delivering auto parts. And my mind at that time was I wanted to help my boss and I wanted to help my customers. I wanted to get my customers the auto parts that were correct and in time so they could get their people on the road and have their cars safe. I'm an auto delivery guy. But my mind could be, I really want to help people. Whether we're washing dishes, I used to be a dishwasher. I didn't have that mind when I was a dishwasher. I was just washing dishes. But I could have had the mind. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh really talks about that, about, you know, really the miracle of cleaning dishes, of having a nice, safe environment, and, you know, if it's at a restaurant, that these people get fed, and that they're fed in a way that's safe and it's healthy, and that each dish I'm cleaning really makes a difference in life if it's cleaned and healthy and well. So it doesn't have to be that we go work at an NGO and join the Peace Corps. I mean, those are good things. But you have the opportunity to bring the beneficial mind into everything that we're doing. And so the upset client at work, well, we have the opportunity to alleviate that suffering. A classic example I've used a lot of times when I was a school teacher. Yeah, I taught in a low-income minority school. And so a lot of people there really struggled financially and had hardships. It was a tough place. It was tough just for kids to get to school. And at the end of what felt like a long day, all days are 24 hours, so they're not longer than the other. But it felt like a long day. I answered the phone. You know, it's like the kids are out. And the phone rang, and there was a mother on the other end of the phone, and the mother on the other phone just lit into me. Just lit into me. She was upset. And she was screaming at me because her son failed. She got the report card. And she's upset. And now I would have loved to say that immediately compassion arose in my mind. That's not what happened right away. She's yelling at me. It's the end of our day, and she's accusing me of being a terrible teacher, and pointing out that I should have talked to her. I should have engaged her more in and let her know that her son was failing, and all these things. And as she's yelling at me, my mind goes to, well, I did send that notice, and I did, I've got my whole defense, because I did do these things that we were required to do, but fortunately, she yelled long enough that I was able to shift my mind. And what happened was, again, not because she just yelled long enough that I finally was able to breathe for a little bit and realize she was scared. She was scared that her son was not going to pass, that her son wasn't going to have a future. This is a low-income minority school. She's a single mom worried about her kid having a chance in the world, and he failed. And she's a single working mom raising kids. She's yelling at me because she's scared about her kid, and she's feeling hopeless, and she wants something to be different. And I found that the most beneficial thing for me to do at that point was not correct her on all of my attempts to reach home, but instead to say, I am really sorry, and you are right. I could have done more. And I could have done more. I mean, that's true, technically. I could have done more. I could have called every day. I could have done a lot of things. I didn't. And so rather than be caught up in ego and defensiveness, I was able to, and again, not because I was virtuous, just she yelled long enough, to breathe and come back with a more helpful, beneficial response, which was, you're right, I could have done more, I am sorry. And what shifted in that moment was she knew that I cared about her and her son, and then we could now have the important conversation, which was, what do we do now? How do we get them back on track? How can we work together? And that became a beneficial conversation. Not who's right, not who's wrong, not, the facts. What's beneficial? And that's just one encounter. How many encounters in our life do we get caught up on right and wrong, and who did what, and who's disrespecting me, and this and that, versus how can we move through suffering and find a beneficial outcome? What's beneficial here? So it's that kind of mind that we can bring into our interactions, that kind of mind that we can bring into the activities that we are doing in our life. And it's our sense of self-importance and ego that creates that problem. Because heaven forbid someone think that I'm not a good teacher doing my job. Right? When in fact I could have been a better teacher. And what's the goal of the teacher? But to help people succeed. Not to hang on to pride and ego and a certificate on that. Right? So this is the attitude then when we think about the far-reaching attitude of ethics, is that we're going to make a really meaningful sense of the life that we have to purify our mind of the obscurations that prevent me from living a life that's purposeful, meaningful, and helpful. The things that are preventing me from living a life that I'll feel good about when this body's no longer here. Now, the beautiful thing is if you're a Buddhist and a Mahayana practitioner, you're planting all the seeds for enlightenment, whether in this lifetime, the next lifetime, it goes on. If you're not a Buddhist, if you're not sure about any of this, you make this life meaningful. It's a beautiful thing. It doesn't require any faith. You start watering the seeds that you want to grow in your life, guess what happens? They grow. You stop doing the things that create conflict and misunderstanding in your life. You stop having conflict and misunderstanding in your life. You stop being the most important person in the room. You can be a part of this thing we call the universe and feel good about how you operate in it. So it doesn't require some faith in a beyond life. If you have that, you can just see how it grows. If you don't have it, you can see how it applies in your day-to-day life. That by living this day well, your tomorrow becomes better. But if I just water the weeds in my garden, guess what grows? I keep walking out there looking for fruit. I keep walking out there looking for flowers, but I didn't plant any flowers. I didn't plant any fruit. I just watered seeds of anger, resentment, jealousy, self-importance, self-cherishing, resentment. That's what I've been watering. And yet I go out there and I think, well, I should be happy. I haven't created any cause for it, but that's beside the point. So in our own lifetime, we can cultivate the seeds that really lead to this inner peace, well-being, clarity of mind, and meaning in our life, a purposeful life that really creates this inner peace and tranquility. We can make each day a good day to die. And I think that's a really good motivation to live each day. So as we enter into the second perfection, we really, want to get away from the idea that ethics is anything, some dry subject, when in fact it becomes the soil from which all of your potentials grow. This is where we tend the garden of the life that we want. And I just constantly want to invite you to think about the peace of mind that comes with having nothing to hide. To actually be at peace with who you are and what you do and how you engage in the world. Pretty amazing. So I'm going to pause there. I'm actually a few minutes early. And see if there's any questions that anyone may have. Yes, Julie.
I'm just curious to hear you about maybe the difference between a self-cherishing attitude or maybe what I would call like a self-sacrificing attitude where you're benefiting others or you think you're helping others all the time and maybe abandoning your own self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of in that, you may have touched on this before, like can taking care of your quote-unquote self, how and if that can be of benefit to others?
Yeah. I mean, you're just rephrasing, I think, the same question, which is, again, and a very good question for those of you online, around the idea of the difference between a self-cherishing attitude that creates problems versus a self-nourishing attitude, maybe, that is really beneficial, right? Because what happens sometimes, we hear these, I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to have unconditional love for all beings, right? And so we go out without what we call wise compassion, the wisdom of compassion. A really fascinating dynamic, especially around this mind that I'm going to be compassionate, I'm going to be all loving and kind, and then I screw up, and I yell at you, and I get pissed off, and then I beat myself up, because guess what? I'm not perfect. I'm trying to cultivate unconditional compassion for all beings, but I can't even give it to myself. Which is kind of a fascinating interplay there. And so where we get confused a lot of times is that we are part of all beings. If I want compassion for all beings, I need to be compassionate here as well as out there. And that if I am going to truly be of benefit to others, I need to be healthy. I need to be balanced. I need to be nourished. I need to be in a very stable, clear position to help others. So this sense of nourishing myself in a way that's healthy and well so I can be of benefit. I can't benefit others if I'm out of balance. I can't benefit others if I'm devoting my whole life and wearing myself out. And, people get what they talk about, compassion fatigue, or, I think if it's really empathy fatigue. But the idea that I'm not caring for myself and I'm doing everything for others and I run out of gas and I'm not nourishing myself. Really common in counseling and so forth too if I'm not doing those things. So we really want to have a healthy sense of getting our needs met in a way that's balanced, healthy, and well, in a way that can feel good and provides fuel so that we can help others. I like to call it a healthy sense of non-self-esteem. Non-self-esteem. I mean, that's really what we want, is a sense of non-self-esteem. And that's recognizing that this self that I attach to doesn't really exist, but that what is here is the potential of enlightenment, and to value that. And as I can recognize that all of you know a lot more about a lot of things than I do. All of you are better at things than I am. All of you are smarter in a lot of ways than I am. All of you have something to teach me. I'm not better than anyone. Simultaneously, I'm not less than anyone. Not less than anyone either. And so it's that kind of attitude of coming in and knowing that how we interact is a relationship, and one that we're all engaged in, and that I'm just as valuable as you and you're just as valuable as me. The twist on that is there's a lot more of you than me, so that becomes more important. So the question about benefiting others is, what is the most beneficial for the most people in this situation? not what do I find beneficial in that sense. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful. It's that sense of really being compassionate and kind with ourselves so that we can be much more helpful to others, because we can't help others if we're out of gas. We can't help others if we don't have boundaries and take care of ourselves. We can't help ourselves if we're in unhealthy relationships with others that are abusive, right? That's not going to make anything better. But if I get out of those, yeah. Good question. Thanks. Time for one more, maybe. Yes.
You know, with so many people with so many different backgrounds and knowledge and everything, you know, ethics, what is ethical for one person could, how do you discern it? What's ethical for one? Like the woman who wants Vishal married life, so she's like, that's her ethic, she's not going to do it. If for other people, their ethic is, it's perfectly okay. Or is that not an ethical issue? Is that a moral issue or a right or wrong issue?
Okay, so I'm not exactly sure if you're asking, so are you asking about with ethics with other people, or are you asking about how do you find your ethics when there are other people with so many?
Yeah.
Which are the questions?
Yeah, like if you have a ethical system, like this is totally okay, but it's like, different. 90% of the other people don't think it's ethical. How do you examine that? I guess I'm asking.
Yeah, so when it comes to ethics, right, so when it comes to ethics, you know, we have a guide within Buddhism that says these 10 things create a lot of problems. As a practitioner of the Mahayana and with Bodhisattva vows, we take precepts of behaviors that we find more ethical and helpful. And whenever we're saying ethical, we're saying helpful, beneficial. There are things that encourage a life that's more meaningful and helpful to us. Other people have their values and their ethics. One of my favorite quotes that I just love to death is, and I really hold this to be true, is never let my sense of morality prevent me from doing the right thing. Never let my sense of morals prevent me from doing the right thing. In other words, not to get so stuck up in a rule that I can't ask myself the question, what's beneficial here? So one of my teachers, who was a monk, came to the West and asked his teacher, he said, you know, we have all these vows. We have a lot of vows as a monk. I was a monk, we have a lot of vows. There's a lot of things you can't do. You're not even supposed to be in a car with a woman alone. That's a vow, right? A precept. You don't do these things. Well, there was no way for him to come in the West. I mean, whoever was picking him up at the airport is going to be a woman. And how do you do this, right? There's all these rules. And his teacher said the most important thing with the Bodhisattva mind is to ask yourself, what is the most beneficial thing to do in this circumstance? And ultimately, for me, that's the litmus test. Is in this particular circumstances, what's the most beneficial thing I can do for all of us here concerned? And chances are that will be a virtuous behavior without the big rule list. The rule lists are nice guides, and what people do, people do. What I'm in control of is what I do, and my question has to continually observe and ask, what's the most beneficial? Will I make mistakes? Sure. Have I mistakes? Sure. But if I continually inquire and ask myself what's most beneficial, I'm going to be a lot more virtuous than non-virtuous. And so that's where I keep going back to. I think it's good advice from that Lama. You're still wondering, yeah. But, you know, ultimately we have to find in ourselves and really attack these things and see what is the most beneficial thing to do here. Somebody runs into a room chasing a guy with a gun. Are you honest and tell him he's hiding in the closet? What's the most beneficial thing to do? So in each situation, what's the most beneficial thing? life's very gray and messy. Yeah. So we do our best, but continually asking ourselves in this situation what's most beneficial. All right, well, let's go ahead and do a dedication. We cultivated a lot of merit and wisdom here today. Let's dedicate it for the benefit of all beings. Let us dedicate the virtue and wisdom that we have accumulated both here today and throughout our lives, both individually and collectively. We dedicate this for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. And may we be able to use the merit and wisdom accumulated here today and through our lives to purify our own minds and to cultivate our mind of enlightenment so we can become fully enlightened Buddhas and benefit all beings. Well, thank you all so much. Always a joy to share a Wednesday with you in the Dharma. And those of you online, thanks so much for joining us as well. So be well, have fun, and try to stay out of trouble. And cultivate virtuous and constructive ethics. All right, be well.